In November, the government said every smartphone sold in India had to come pre-installed with its cyber safety app. It's called Sanchaar Saathi and it helps you detect and report cyber fraud. But critics were quick to react. They said it's government surveillance disguised as safety. Phone makers such as Apple refused to install the app, saying that it would mess up their operating system. Privacy experts called it regulatory overreach. And within weeks, the directive was quietly withdrawn. But here's the thing, the app isn't the real problem. It's what the app exposes about who might control your data and the issues with the legal framework that gives them the rights to do so. Listen on, it's Thursday, the 4th of December. I'm Anirban Chaudhary. This is the Morning Brief. So, first, context. A rise in cybercrimes and instances of digital fraud, from GPS spoofing that tricks delivery systems to deepfakes to digital arrests. All this has pushed the government into hyper-vigilant mode in the last 2 years. Here's Kiran Rathi, my colleague and ET's telecom vertical head.
So for, say, a couple of years, cybersecurity has been the topmost priority, not only for DOT, but also for METI, for MHA, for the security agencies. So all the departments and all the regulators took up the menace of digital frauds, digital arrests, and other cyber scams. So in the last couple of months, what has happened is, DOT notified the telecom cybersecurity rules on October 22nd.
Among other things, the rules call for mandatory reporting of security breaches within hours, continuous monitoring by operators, certification of network equipment and software, and a countrywide network of telecom security testing labs. Also, the rules place liability on telecom companies for vendor risks. As Kiran said, that was October. A month after that,
on November 28th, they issued 2 directives, one to the OTT players like WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal, and another one to all the handset makers like Apple, Samsung, Vivo, everyone, that they have to ensure SIM binding.
This means that your SIM card will be bound to your WhatsApp account.
It means that if a person removes the SIM from the handset, WhatsApp will stop working. It will ensure that, there is no misuse. And the other mandate was to the mobile handset makers, telling them that they have to pre-install Sanchaar Saathi, it is DOT's cybersecurity app, on all the new smartphones that will come in the market.
What does the app do? It lets users report suspected fraud calls, helps you report and block a lost phone, allows you to check if an IMEI is genuine or tampered with, lets you block unwarranted commercial calls, and it also verifies whether your handset itself is original or fake. So I asked Kiran, how successful has it been in actually curbing telecom fraud?
So in the last couple of years, when Sanchaar Saathi was launched, so far there are 21.5 crore portal visits, 1.4 crore people have downloaded the app, and 1.43 mobile connections were disconnected using the Not My Number function in the app. 26 lakh stolen or lost phones were traced utilizing the app. And of the 26 lakh stolen phone, 7.23 lakh have been successfully returned to the persons who lost their phones. And 40.96 lakh fraudulent connections have been disconnected. And 6.2 lakh fraud-linked IMEIs were blocked. And the government also says that they are able to save 475 crore in potential financial losses using one of the features of the app.
Now, this was my conversation with Kiran on Wednesday morning. The mandate was very much there. But on Wednesday afternoon, this happened.
In a major reversal, the government today rolled back its order mandating pre-installation of Sanchaar Saathi cybersecurity app on all smartphones.
The Department of Telecom has rolled back its directive to mobile phone companies to mandatorily preload the Sanchar Saathi app.
But why the backtracking? Here's Kiran.
So government backtracked because there was such a hue and cry from the industry saying that there were so many issues with the mandate, because it becomes virtually difficult for the makers to pre-install the app. If certain country specific mandates are there, then they have to tweak that operating system and it becomes very difficult. And there were certain phones which are obviously being imported. Then how can you mandate something which is not even manufactured in India? So it was turning out to be practically difficult for these companies to implement the mandate. The other thing was that most of the people, the privacy activists and the tech industry were saying that, why are you mandating such a app? It will obviously lead the government to do surveillance on the citizens, right? So there was a backlash from the handset as well as the privacy activists, and now the government has backtracked. Although the government is not accepting that they are backtracking because of the pressure, they are saying that, the app already has 1.4 crore downloads and 2000 fraud incidents are reported every day on the app, and the app itself is gaining traction. So there is no need to do the mandate. So it will remain voluntary.
Okay, no more mandatory Sanchar Saathi, but what about the SIM binding mandate? That still remains, but for how long?
Some of the companies, that basically the tech industry, they are raising concerns on that also, that it will violate the privacy of consumers and stuff like that. So we have to see how government moves on that. So it's wait and watch.
Now, what are the problems with SIM binding? TV Ramachandran, president of an industry body called Broadband India Forum, says that it shifts the way we communicate.
Why do I say that? It's because its efficacy to accomplish is very questionable. What it says, it will affect customers who legitimately choose to use apps across devices, smartphones, tablets, PCs, etc., and travel. So anybody who travels across borders or relies on Wi-Fi only devices, rigid SIM binding will lead to serious loss of flexibility and autonomy. This would be a major regression for a nation that prides itself on its digital sharpness and openness. And there are many practical examples, Anirban, of the tremendous inconvenience. See, for example, in India, we've got lakhs of small and micro businesses, as you're well aware. There, they juggle accounts, several accounts. Countless families also share devices. All these genuine users will face disruptions because of all the web check-in and other multi-device issues which are sought to be controlled by these two directives.
Another inconvenience, SIM binding logs you out of WhatsApp every 6 hours.
See, you're now putting a 6-hour login. Now, what is the sanctity of that 6 hours? I don't know how it was derived. Actually, security, I'm all for it. But what you are looking for in security, you go and ask anybody in the agencies, LMEs, security, by security, they mean traceability. True traceability of telecom identity begins long before SIM binding. SIM binding is the later stage. But what you need to have a robust, error-free KYC, enforcement of these in the network, improved IMEI tracking, and the SEIR, shared EIR, and EIR-based blocking, which means a lot of cooperation and collaboration amongst countries, individuals, operators, TSC validation, etc. All these are globally recognized, including by GSMA. So these need to be first ensured in India before resorting to measures which could significantly stifle digital activities and user choice. That's what I'm worried about.
Now, this pushback to and rollback of Sanchar Saathi is part of a pattern in India's digital policy trajectory. Laws that are intended to protect customers are often critiqued for overreach, compliance burdens, and privacy intrusion. In 2022, the government withdrew the Personal Data Protection Bill as it became unwieldy with too many suggested tweaks from other lawmakers and on criticism that it diluted users' rights. The subsequent Digital Personal Data Protection Act is much more streamlined. But issues within its framework are exactly what's resulting in examples of regulatory overreach like Sanchaar Saathi. Here's Nikhil Narendran, partner at Trilegal.
Anirban, so the problem with the data protection law that the government just enacted is that it does not necessarily bind the government for most parts. So the government can use any of our personal data without taking our consent. And similarly, even without consent, none of the provisions of the Act applies if it's used for prevention, detection of crime, etc. So essentially, it gives a rather some sort of a blank check to the government to do whatever it wants with the personal data without necessarily prescribing the limits around how this personal data can be used, the time period for it should be used. It doesn't need to give us a notice, etc. Now, when you install an app like the Sanchar Saathi, the problem with that is it later can be used as some sort of a scope creep, and it can be used to extract data, personal information about us. And as you know, now we live in a world where pretty much everything, even our family memories to bank details to even our personal communication, is within the phone. And the government technically doesn't need to get our consent if it can find a backdoor, if it can find a technological loophole to extract this data. So the problem here is not so much the app per se, but the unfortunate state of affairs in India with respect to the surveillance laws and the data protection laws in India.
Understood. Now, Nikhil, if the app has technical permissions beyond what it claims to need, what can users do? Can users legally challenge this overreach, or does national security override privacy rights?
So the unfortunate part about when it comes to national security, government is not at all transparent. Even otherwise, when there is an interception or a surveillance order which is passed against an individual, the company against whom that order is passed is even supposed to keep that information confidential for someone to take that and challenge before a court of law. Now, again, when it comes to this app itself, technically the users will be able to challenge this under a writ petition before the applicable High Court or the Supreme Court of India. The problem, Anirban, with respect to this app is that we users wouldn't get to know even if there is a scope with respect to this app and this app starts collecting personal data about us. The government is not going to tell us that it is doing so, which makes it practically very difficult for us to go before a Supreme Court and allege that there is in fact surveillance. This also, Anirban, just to point out, reflects to a point, which is the fact that our Indian surveillance laws are at least 30 years old and which predates the internet and WhatsApp and the iPhone, right? It was created for phone tapping and it is just not refined to handle the new intricacies of interception that happens in the digital age. And unfortunately, the executive, which is the government itself, is a maker and checker when it comes to issuing interception orders. In most countries outside India, most advanced countries, we see the judiciary acting as a checker when it comes to the orders passed by the executive when it comes to surveillance.
Give me an example.
For instance, even in UK and EU, GDPR, right? The GDPR, which is the standard in the European Union, the government is treated as the data controller, which means that the government is at par with the private sector when it comes to the information that it collects and processes, right? So which means that the government will not misuse that information. Currently, in Indian scenario, other than the fact that there are some provisions which says the government should give information and notice when it comes to aspects relating to giving of subsidies and giving of services to the citizens, the government literally has a blank check, a free hand to actually process the information the way it wants without any sort of accountability or liability.
Now, Nikhil, with the government withdrawing its mandate to compulsorily pre-install Sanchaar Saathi, I mean, it's obviously a relief.
Absolutely. I think it's an absolutely welcome news with respect to the fact that, look, the government has not mandated this, and it is also a big victory for digital rights activism in India.
But are there still concerns?
The one thing to remember here is this does not give us any comfort with respect to the users who wants to voluntarily install it. So, which means that we actually need a law. We need an amendment to the Data Protection Act, which makes the government accountable and liable for misuse of the data. Then only will we see a trusted digital nation in India building, along with both government and private sector playing its part.
The mandate is gone, but the fundamentals remain the same. The laws governing digital surveillance were written for telephone tapping in the 1990s, as Nikhil said, and they have not caught up. The Sanchar Saathi U-turn happened because powerful entities pushed back. The question is, do we the users have that power. That's it for today. This episode was produced by Vinay Joshi and me, sound designed by Indranil Bhattacharjee. A new episode of TMB drops every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, wherever you get your podcasts. Keep listening. All external clips used in this episode belong to their owners. Credits are mentioned in the description.